Talk to us a little bit about volatility that we see in the New York Stock Exchange, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and other markets. Why are we seeing so much volatility today? Why do we see up 300 one day, down 250 the next? What kinds of things are influencing that?
You have a different industry today in that the idea of a buy and hold investor, which some people in this room understand totally, has gone a little bit to the sidelines, and we have such terms today as vulture funds, venture funds, hedge funds. I mean, there's more funds than there are stocks on the New York Stock Exchange. So you have the herd mentality that you were mentioning earlier, where they seem to start to chase the same ideas. So what you're seeing in this market today is you're seeing some forced and perhaps some pre-anticipated liquidation because hedge funds are concerned about redemptions, mutual funds are concerned about redemptions, and so they're building cash positions, and they sell the highest valued item they can sell, whether it's oil or whether it's gold or whether it's non-commodity in a stock, to raise the most amount of money they can raise.
So it would be fair to say that the same technology that the exchange used to help improve its operations and to safeguard against certain outcomes has facilitated now investors, both individual investors as well as institutional investors, to exact market changes much quicker as well, and that's contributing to a lot of the volatility.
It has, and of course the press has helped dramatically as well. I mean, you can watch CNBC all day long, as I do when I'm in the mood. Fox will give you a report. All of your major channels here, I'm sure, give you a report. And of course, then you can walk into the Brock School of Business, and what do you see there but a flashing board with stock prices on it? An addict's delight.
I only check that about 20 times a day.
Only
so,
20.
Yeah,
That's
I've
good.
really restrained myself.
You're not quite addicted.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of turn our attention to the current financial situation. I'm going to ask you to provide commentary, just generally on where we are currently within our economy. Obviously, you're somebody who follows the equity exchanges very closely, but you're also a very savvy business person and a very savvy investor. What are the events that have really gotten us to where we are today, in your opinion? And I want you to be as candid as you want to be. And what is your opinion of some of the market interventions, both on the exchange perhaps, but also more generally by the federal government in response to the current economic crisis?
Well, let's start with the guilty parties. You have 10 fingers, I have 10 fingers. Between the two of us, we don't have enough fingers to point at the guilty parties in this. Start with the mortgage lenders that were unscrupulous. The brokers that sold mortgages that should have never been sold, including some of the banks. Let's start with the speculators that were buying 3 and 4 and 5 houses at a time because the bubble was never going to end. Let's start with the individual borrower who lied on his or her application for a mortgage. That sort of gets through the retail side of it. Then let's go to Wall Street, those devious bankers that were creating all of these interesting pieces of paper that nobody knew what they were, pools of mortgages, credit default swaps. Let's pin a little of the blame on them. Then if we wanted to be politically incorrect, we'd go take a look at Washington, D.C., and we'd line up both parties and we'd shoot them at dawn. They don't get the picture. I mean, exchanges are regulated. There's transparency. You know that when you buy 100 shares of General Electric at $20, there was a seller of 100 shares of General Electric at $20, and you got a pretty darn good idea of what you bought or sold, right? In these credit default swaps, you don't have a clue. Plus, there's no market that says this one is worth $39.22 at this exact moment in time. And there's no reporting of these things. There's no opportunity to see that buyer met seller and Wachovia Bank met Wells Fargo Bank and they did a credit swap of $10 billion in some crazy pool of mortgages. Where do you want to point the blame, sir?
Yeah. Well, obviously, one of our metrics of how our current economic situation is the Dow. I mean, that's the number we see every night. Is that a number that's overemphasized in the media? You mentioned that group earlier. And specifically, what is the federal government trying to manage with their intervention? Are they trying to manage the stock market? Are they trying to manage credit markets, as we've talked about? What is the goal of the federal government as it relates particularly to equity markets?
Well, quickly on the Dow is an index of 30 companies, and it's the one everybody knows. You could ask the 250 people sitting in this room what the S&P closed at tonight, and I would guarantee you that less than 10% could answer with any degree of accuracy, but the S&P 500 is a far better market measurement. What the government is doing, Dean, they had to act. So let's say, forget second-guessing the government. They had no opportunity but to act, Congress. The $125 billion that was given to the banks to bail them out, and I don't like that term, is money that hopefully will find its way back into mortgage markets. Remember in your reading that the Bear Stearnses of the world were leveraged at 30 and 35 times to 1 on a given dollar. So they were multiplying the effect of those dollars. The banks effectively leverage at about 10 to 1. So for every dollar that a bank loses in capital, they have to withdraw $10 worth of underlying loans basically on their books. Government was smart enough to figure this out. They're not smart enough to figure some other things out, but we won't go there either. What one would hope evolves from this is that those people that need mortgage money, that have bad mortgages and did nothing wrong, that did not fudge their application for a mortgage, that did not buy the $1 million house when they could afford a $300,000 house, that did nothing unscrupulous, that those people that need help will get help. And Sheila Bair, the head of the FDIC today in the newspaper, is coming out with basically the FDIC should guarantee all the mortgages. I happen to think that's a good idea as long as the taxpayer, doesn't end up holding the bag. The $125 million, fortunately, the government woke up and they took a page out of Warren Buffett's book, and they've got some potential for equity saving here, so the taxpayer has the opportunity, A, to earn an interest rate on the money, and B, hopefully to get something back if these bank stocks ever recover.